All right, so y'all go ahead and do the factoring and the math knowledge question for today. Pause the video, and then once everyone is finished, you can unpause the video and I'll go over the correct answers. So for the factoring, you should have x plus 6 times x minus 2. And then for the math knowledge question, it tells us that triangle ABO is equilateral and the sides are 6. So this is 6, and this one is 6. This is a radius of our circle, so this length is also going to be 6. And then this is actually a right angle. And so we can use Pythagorean theorem to find BC. So we can say x squared plus 6 squared is going to equal 12 squared. So 6 squared is 36. 12 squared is 144. And if you subtract, x squared is going to equal 108. And then we're going to take the square root of 108. From there, we're going to factor. So 108 is 9 times 12. And 9 is 3 times 3. And 12 is 3 times 4. And 4 is 2 times 2. So instead of writing 108, I can say 3 times 3 times 3 times 2 times 2. And then we have to have a pair to pull them out. So this is a pair of 3's, and this is a pair of 2's. So we pulled out a 3 times a 2, that's 6, and then square root's of 3. So your answer would be C. Okay, so we are looking at lesson 24 today. We're going to do algebraic proofs. So hopefully you'll understand how algebraic proofs work after this lesson. So a proof is an argument that uses logic to show that a conclusion is true. So these are the most basic kind of proofs that we're going to be looking at this year, and it's helping you get ready for more complex proofs. So hopefully as you work through these, you'll kind of see how they work, and it'll help with the proofs that we do later on this year. So we're going to go over some properties of equality: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, symmetric, reflexive, transitive, and substitution. So y'all may want to pause the video and write those down, and then leave a column so that you can write down an example of what these properties do. So for the addition property, if A equals B, then A plus C equals B plus C. Basically, you can add the same quantity to both sides of your equation. Okay. For the subtraction property, if A equals B, then we can say A minus C equals B minus C. You can subtract the same quantity from both sides of your equation. For the multiplication one, if A equals B, then A times C is going to have to equal B times C, because you can multiply both sides of your equation by the same thing. The division property, if A equals B, and we have to say that C is not equal to 0, then A over C is going to equal B over C. And that's because you can divide both sides by the same number. So you've probably used those before without even knowing that they are properties of equality, but those are properties of equality. Now we're going to look at the symmetric property. It is if A equals B, then B equals A. So we looked at the reflexive, symmetric, and transitive properties of congruence back towards the very beginning of the year, and these are now properties of equality because we're dealing with equal sign instead of congruent signs. For the reflexive property, all it is, A equals A. Whatever it is equals itself. The transitive property is if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. And then the substitution property, if A equals B, then that means that B can be substituted. 4a in any expression. Okay? So if a equals b, then b can be substituted for a in any expression. So you do need to become familiar with those because we're going to be using them during our proofs. And not just our algebraic proofs. We'll be using them on all of our proofs. So let's look here. We want to solve the equation and provide a justification for each step. So on these, you're going to want to work through the problem completely. So we're going to distribute here. The justification for the very, very beginning is just that it is the given. You're always going to start with your given. So then we distribute what they gave us, and we'll have 10x minus 15 equals x plus 3. And so the justification here is the distributive property. Okay, so that's the first thing that you're going to do. Now I want to get my x's on one side of the equation. So to do that, I am going to subtract x from both sides. And so that would be the subtraction property of equality. Okay, and then we can combine our like terms. So 10x minus x is 9x, and then we have minus 15. X minus x goes away, and we have equals 3. So all we did here was simplify. Then from there, we're going to add 15 to both sides of our equation. So 9x minus 15 plus 15, and 3 plus 15. So that is the addition property of equality. And then we're going to simplify. So we're going to have 9x equals 18. From there, we're going to divide. So 9x divided by 9 and 18 divided by 9. And so that's the division property of equality. And then if you simplify, you get x equals 2. And simplify would be your justification. So that's how you can do solving an equation with a justification. Basically, you just have to show all of your work, and you have to justify what you did, explain what you did, kind of thing. Okay? All right, so we're going to do the same thing for this one. So if you think you can do it by yourself, y'all can go ahead and try it, and then unpause the video and I'll go over it. So the first justification is going to be given, because that's what you are given. Then we're going to multiply both sides of our equation by 6, because that's the denominator that we have. So you're going to do the multiplication property of equality. And then you're going to distribute. So that's going to end up being 12x plus 12 over 3 and 30 over 6. And then from here you can simplify. So that's going to become 4x plus 4 and 5. After that, I want to subtract 4 from both sides of my equation. Whoops. And so that's going to be the subtraction property of equality. And then we simplify. And then from here, you're going to divide both sides by 4. So that's the division property of equality. And then after that, you're just going to simplify. So x is going to equal 1/4. So these aren't terribly difficult algebra problems. Mainly what they're trying to get you to do is practice the justification. So you have to show all of your work on these, which I know some of you are groaning at. You don't want to, but you need to so that you can practice getting in the habit for proofs. Geometry does a lot of proofs. We're not there yet, but we're working towards them. So it's really important that you know how to do a proof. All right, so now it tells us that the steps are shown in the correct order, but the justifications are not in the correct order. So what always goes first for our justification? The given. So I'm going to move these over a little bit. The given is always going to go first. So that's going to be the given. What did we do to get from this step to that step? We distributed. So we're going to do the distribution property. And then to go from here to here, we subtracted 2. So that would be the subtraction property of equality. And then what did we do from this step to that step? We simplified. And then from here to here, we divided by 2. And then the last thing that we did is simplify. So sometimes they'll have you just rearrange them, and that's all you have to do. Just figure out which one goes with which. Okay, we're going to look at another example. They tell us the area of a rectangular garden is 315 square feet. The length is x plus 6, and the width is x. Find the dimensions of the garden and provide a justification. So the first thing you're going to start off with is what they gave you. The area is 315. The length is x plus 6, and the width is x. And so all of that is the given. From there, we are going to want to use our area formula for a rectangle. So that's our area formula for a rectangle. And then we're going to substitute into that formula. So A equals 315. Your length is x plus 6. And your width is x. And we used the substitution property of equality. From here, we're going to want to distribute. So you're going to end up with x squared plus 6x. You're going to use the distributive property. After that, since I have an x squared, I'm going to want to set it equal to 0 so I can factor. So I'm going to subtract 315 from both sides of my equation. And so that would be the subtraction. And then we can simplify it, and we'll get 0 equals x squared plus 6x minus 315. From there, we want to factor. So what numbers multiply to give you 315 and add or subtract to give you a positive 6? we're going to be factoring here, so your justification is factor. It's going to be positive 21 and negative 15. So that means that x has to equal either negative 21 or 15. Well, it can't be a negative number, so x equals 15. So we solved for x, and then that means that our length is 21 and our width is 15. And that's from substitution property, because we just plugged it into our length and width equations that they gave us. Okay, so that's how that one would work. A lot of writing, but they're not terribly difficult problems. They're more getting you to practice the justification part of it. So let's see if y'all can do this practice problem by yourself. After y'all are finished, unpause the video and I'll go over it. So for this one, you first write down your equation. X plus 5 equals 4x plus 2. And that's the given. I want to subtract x from both sides of my equation. So that's going to be the subtraction property of equality. And then you're going to simplify. From there, I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides of my equation. So again, it's going to be the subtraction property of equality. And then I can simplify to get 3x, or 3 equals 3x. And then I'm going to divide by 3 on both sides of my equation. And so that's the division property of equality. And then I'm going to simplify. And so that would be your answer. If you wanted to make it x equals 1 here, then you would need to say, you would need to use the symmetric property. Of equality. So if you wanted to flip it around, you could do that. But it wouldn't be necessary. Okay? So that's how that one would work. All right, so let's try this practice problem. Y'all try it by yourself, and then I'm going to go over it. So you're going to start off with your given. 4x plus 5 over 3 equals 5x plus 7 over 4. So that's your given. The next thing you want to do is to multiply by 12. And the reason we picked 12, 3 times 4 is 12. So that's the multiplication property of equality. From there, you're going to distribute, and so we're going to have 48x plus 60 over 3, and then 60x plus 84 over 4. So that's the distributive property. From there, you're going to simplify. So you're going to end up with 16x plus 20 equals 15x plus 21. Okay? After that, I want my x's on the left side. So I'm going to subtract 15x from both sides. So the subtraction property of equality. And then we're going to simplify. So we'll have x plus 20 equals 21. And then we're going to subtract 20 from both sides of your equation. And then if you simplify, you get x equals 1. So that would be your answer for that one. Okay, so now we're going to look at this one. Again, the left side is in the correct order, but the right side are out of order. So we want to rearrange them so that they're in the correct order. So I'm going to move these over a little bit. Y'all go ahead and pause the video and try these by yourself. Make sure to put them in the right order. So the first thing is always going to be the given. And then from there, we got rid of our fraction by multiplying everything by 3. So that's the multiplication property. And then they actually skipped the simplifying steps on this one. And they just subtracted 18 from the left side and from the right side. And then they added the 8x, or the 6x to make it 8x on the left side, and then they divided. So on this one, they didn't show the simplify. And eventually, when we go to actual proofs, they won't do the simplify every time. But for right now, I want you to get in the habit of making sure to do it so that you're showing all of your work. Okay, so hopefully you understand how to order those justifications. We're going to look at one more practice problem. We're going to find the area of the rectangular floor of a shed based on the dimensions of x plus 2 and x minus 1. So you're going to start with what they gave you. They told you the area equaled 40, the length equaled x plus 2, and the width equaled x minus 1. So that is the given. Then you're going to say your area formula is length times width. So that's the area formula for a rectangle. So then you're going to substitute the 40 for your A, the x plus 2 for your L, and the x minus 1 for your W. So that's substitution property of equality. And then we're going to distribute. So we're going to have x squared minus x plus 2x minus 2. From there, I am going to subtract 40 from both sides of my equation. And then I'm going to simplify. So on the left side, I'm going to have 0. On the right side, I'm going to have x squared plus x and then minus 42. From here, we will factor. So we'll have x plus 7 times x minus 6. And then we're going to solve for x. So x would equal negative 7 or 6. Negative 7, you can't have a negative for your x value because it's going to give you a negative length and width. So that means that our length is going to be 8 and our width is going to be 5. And that would be substitution. And so that would be your answer for that one. So hopefully you were able to work through that by yourself. Okay, we're going to look at the challenge question for today. We want to name the property that could be used for each statement. So y'all try and name those, and then after y'all have given it a shot, unpause the video and I'll go over them. So for the first one, if 5 times x plus, or 5 times the measure of angle r equals 50 degrees, the measure of angle r is 10 degrees, that would just be the division property. If X is congruent to angle, or to segment XY. That's the reflexive property. If RS equals 4 and PQ equals RS plus 2, then PQ equals 6. We substituted the 4, so that's the substitution property. And if MN equals GH and GH equals QR, MN equals QR is the transitive property. So I don't really think that was a challenge question, but hopefully you were able to get most of those right by yourself. So that's how you do algebraic proofs. Biggest thing is to make sure to show all of your work and justify every single statement. Your homework is 1 through 30, so make sure y'all do those tonight so we can go over any questions you have tomorrow.